Hi and welcome. Thanks for joining us. My name's Russell. I'm a pre-sales engineer at Compnow, and I'm joined here by Mark, an employee of Jamf. And we're here to talk to you about securing your devices in the corporate environment. And Mark, why don't you tell us a little bit about Jamf?
Well, Jamf, a lot of people have not heard of Jamf before. So Jamf's been providing support for organizations to help manage their Apple devices for around about 22 years now. Ironically, we did start off in the education space, and that's grown over the years. And now we have customers ranging all around the world, from government to the big name players through to small business and education. Jamf has been kind of following the same model as Apple. We're looking at securing the devices in the enterprise, making them secure, but keeping it consumer simple and ensuring that we protect the privacy of those individuals, the information that's on those devices. So as far as with Jamf, where we are in the market today, so we've got around about 72,000 customers worldwide. We've got over 30 million devices, Apple devices under management on Jamf platforms around the world, on Jamf Cloud and various other areas such as that, secure environments. If you look at our customer base, 7 of the top 10 tech companies, ranked in the Fortune 500 use Jamf. And here in Australia, customers always ask me who uses Jamf. I like to say we have a relationship with majority of the household name brands out there today. So what is currently happening out there in the world today? What is the threat landscape? So Australia leads the world in these technologies with success stories that include the application of blockchain. We've seen it with NAB and with CommBank that they've publicly announced how they've used blockchain technologies there. And the immersive simulation in education, helping our younger generation and being immersed into the new technologies and capabilities so they can step into new roles that haven't even been created yet. And then we've got robotics and medical procedures, and then the Internet of Things with drone technology and geo-mapping and such as that. Then we've got to look at other things such as Australia is recognized as a world leader in silicon-based quantum computing research. I had no idea that we had that kind of capability. Yeah. And on a recent trip to Canberra, I met with an individual who gave me kind of an insight into this, and it's phenomenal where we're going with this. But we also got to consider where Australia's come from. Australia has been fundamental and an incubator in things like Google Maps, Wi-Fi, and the black box flight recorder. And everybody knows Cochlear and the implants there, and how that amazing technology has helped the young and the old to hear again. With cybercrime, state actors are top of the cybercrime list, and not just after the Australian state secrets, but they're after the IP of leading organisations and company information.
100%. And what we're finding, especially from our clients' perspective, is that these types of stories and these types of incidents that are popping up are becoming more and more common. And from that perspective, we want to kind of help you understand how Jamf and Apple have kind of pulled together and kind of worked out over the last period of time how you can really work and mitigate the risk associated with these type of attacks that can eventually or do happen every day almost. Great.
And we also look at, if you consider the reports and the data provided by the ACSC and the OAIC, the Office of the Australian Information Commissioner, indicates that there is a cyber crime every 7 minutes in Australia, and this is increasing year on year. There's a rise in the average cost per cybercrime to over $39,000 for small businesses and $88,000 for medium businesses, and well over $62,000 for large businesses. Yeah. Ransomware is still top of the list when we look at the data leaks and the reports that are out there. And ransomware lends to be a double extortion vector. Once they compromise the customer and they extort them for whatever kind of payment, you don't know whether that's being kind of mitigated and that risk is no longer there. Yeah. They go in for double-sided and they still have access to customer lists and exposure and additional ransom. Phishing and smishing attacks. These are on the rise globally and still a primary cause of data leaks in the world today. Human element is still a big factor because once an email has gone through all your corporate email filtering and through all the security procedures and everything else to land into your inbox, it's still you, the individual, that will click on that link that will gain the action.
And what we found is that from a delivery perspective or a security perspective, your standard backups for your corporate information just isn't quite enough to be able to thwart off a lot of this type of stuff. You need to be more proactive when it comes to the end user devices, because as Mark rightly said, a lot of the times it's the end users not picking up on a phishing because they're getting quite elaborate now. And what you need to do is make sure that you can have your devices in compliance, and you need the right tool sets to be able to actually bring that compliance and give you the information. It's one thing to be able to have the information, but do you have automations to be able to enforce certain aspects of your device compliance?
And if I go even further, like in Australia, that phishing being increased as is, it's commonly referred to as a BEC, business email compromise. That's $98 million per year average loss around phishing attacks. It's around about 64,000 per incident. And the biggest concern there is an organization has to get cybersecurity right 100% of the time, whereas a cyber criminal only has to get that right once.
Exactly, and it's all about preventative. And the more information that you can have and the more information that you have to deal with, the more you can actually be proactive. As an organization, you need to make sure that the sophisticated attacks have the ability to be blocked. They're very sneaky in that the emails that come through can look very legitimate at the end of the day, and you need to be able to help protect your end users, and you do that via automation as well as having the telemetry data coming back.
So before we explore how to build that secure Apple experience for your staff, we need to understand the threat landscape further and how and why is Apple devices being targeted. Now, when you and I, we started working with Apple devices and that, there was always a statement out there, you don't need any protection on a MacBook or an Apple device. But like anything else, as technology becomes popular, the threat vectors can increase, and if there's money to be made, someone will try to compromise devices or write new code or gain access via the network. So as we've seen in the world today, the Mac's popularity in the enterprise, it cannot be understated. Since Apple's released the M1 and the M2, they're fantastic machines. They're powerhouses in their own right for all aspects of business. In fact, 84% of the world's most innovative companies deploy Mac at scale, according to a recent study performed by Apple.
And we're also finding that large companies are needing to actually employ Apple into their environment, deploy Apple into their environment to ensure that they retain the staff, because a lot of people want to work on an Apple device because that's what they're most comfortable and that's what they do their best work on.
Yeah, we're finding that. And I've had discussions not just with CIOs or CISOs or the C-suite, but I'm having discussions with the HR department because, as you said, how to retain those staff. And the young generation, as I mentioned before, they're having exposure to all the new technology, the new iPads, new Apple devices, and as they move through the education space and becoming new staff, they want to use something that they're used to using, and Apple predominantly being that.
Yep.
So as Apple grows in the enterprises, they're going to be targeted, and there's going to be attacks that are going to occur. So according to research by security vendors, over the last 3 to 4 years, we've seen a dramatic increase in the amount of Mac-specific or Mac-supporting malware dedicated in the wild. Just as Jamf rapidly adopted the new M1 and Apple Silicon architecture for our products, so did malware authors. It took only a few weeks to see the first malware appear, a clear indicator that bad actors are paying attention to the market trends and see enough return on their investments made for continuing the adapted attacks.
Which I find super interesting, because when we look at the Mac in the old days, a lot of the times, as we said before, Macs were very secure and tend to be a little bit of a dark spot from an IT perspective. Yeah. But now, because they are, the marketing person's using a MacBook, you've got your finance people who are using a Mac Mini. At the end of the day, you've got a lot of Macs that are out there doing all sorts of different roles, and you need to make sure that is secure and compliant.
In addition, mobile use in the enterprise is following a similar trend. Yeah. The more we use our mobile devices for work, the attack surfaces or vectors increase further. And with organizations enabling staff with their own device, BYOD, I'm one of those. I use my own iPhone for work. This opens up additional security concerns.
Which we'll touch on later on in the questions kind of area. We're going to bring up some of those, some of the questions that you had previously, as well as, touch on some of the cool aspects of what Jamf's kind of brought to the party, especially for BYOD devices.
And just touching base on those attack vectors, Jamf Threat Labs, we have an amazing team. A lot of them come from well-known organizations with 3 and 4 digit acronyms that have worked in the really high-end security space. And but they've been hard at work. So Jamf, their team there, we have obviously all the capability to recognize these new threats out in the market. And because we look at threats to Apple devices, we're able to kind of identify and just focus on that environment. So here are just some of those that have happened over the last year or so, and some of them you may know of and some not, but just give you some highlight. So during the routine monitoring of Jamf's threat detections in the wild, like everybody else, we have these honeypots, we have these silos out there where we capture this information. So Jamf Threat Labs identified a command line crypto mining tool. And crypto mining, it's been there, it's still there, blockchain and everything else. So this was really
interesting one.
It's really, really interesting. Yeah. And the irony behind it is that they use this capability and they've embedded it into a piece of software, Final Cut Pro, but it was pirated. So every time you used it, if you download that software, that Final Cut Pro, you're actually becoming part of that crypto mining tool capability.
Yeah.
So
one of the interesting things about Jamf Threat Labs is its direct involvement with what the outcomes are for your environments. So they are the hunters, right? They go out there, they try and figure out. They've got the honeypots out there to be able to lure people in to give them the new attacks. So that enables the quick turnaround into Jamf's other products like Jamf Protect for them to be able to make sure that those attacks are stopped pretty much straight away, as well as the ability for them to figure out new CVEs associated with Apple products. Not every OS is secure. There's always going to be CVEs that are going to be released, which at the end of the day needs to be found, and there needs to be mitigation put in. So Jamf Threat Labs in combination with the whole Jamf suite is kind of a match made in heaven, really.
And you really touch on another aspect, It's like we don't just say, there's a piece of malware out there. Jamf Threat Labs, they analyze it, they look at it, they look at the heuristics, how does it act? And, if there's a new version of it that comes out, we're able to kind of identify the new version of that malware based on heuristics and capabilities from what we know of the malware out there in the market today. So we're out there always looking, we're always searching, we're always identifying, and then we're able to push that back straight down onto our customers, into our products to provide them a trusted environment.
So what we want to do now is pivot into managing and securing your devices and how Jamf can actually help you with that.
So again, we all know a couple of years ago we all were sent home. And over the past couple of years, many of the customers had to kind of rapidly transition to remote or hybrid workplace.
Yep, which was very hard for us. We were involved in many companies' rapid remote working policies, and it was very. It was much easier to be able to do it when they had Jamf. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. So over the past few years, as we know, we all transitioned to a work from home environment. And many of the customers have had to rapidly transition to remote or hybrid workplace. As we've now become the norm, many of those workers are still working from home, and some are coming to the office periodically and some are in the office full time. But we've got this hybrid workplace. And with that, it's about how do we manage the challenges that have arisen through that space, because those workers went home. Yes, some of them had corporate devices, but others had to use their own device at home. So it's a place of how do we manage corporate and BYOD to support any work anywhere workplace. Jamf is uniquely positioned to bring together the best of device management, identity, endpoint protection, and secure access to deliver trusted access. So trusted access enables organizations to ensure that only authorized users on enrolled devices that are secure and compliant can access sensitive data.
We're going to come back to that point quite a few times here.
Yes.
So a lot of the times it comes down to that one sentence, is that, it's identity, the device, authorization, as well as securing the sensitive data.
Jamf Trusted Access uniquely brings together all these components of device management, identity, and endpoint protection, enabling a secure access from a single platform. Our customers really, really like this because it provides a great working experience for the end user, and the organization likes it because they know that those devices are trusted and the individual is who they say they are when they're accessing that sensitive data. And this can be applied to both corporate and BYOD devices.
Yeah, which I think is very important because BYOD devices are quite a big thing. A lot of the times, some organizations don't really see the mobile phone as being too much of a threat, but we're all getting those SMSs and we're all getting those spam phone calls that are associated with sending us links to random websites. So having a BYOD based management framework in place is really something that businesses really need to concentrate on, because that's one of the vectors that we're finding is being very successful.
Look, I have a corporate MacBook and I have my own iPhone, as I mentioned before, is my own BYOD. And as you said, the vectors are there, the risks are there, because on my iPhone, I'm continuously receiving emails that are smishing attacks, phishing attacks, and all it takes is one click. As I said, it's the human factor. And if I click, or if I even have an application, it could be TikTok or something else like that, where I click on a link that sends me to an unsecure website, and I want to sign up for that, or I start putting in information or a password that is similar to my corporate password because people have a tendency to use them again. That's putting not only myself at risk, but my organization, the company I work for. Enrolled devices are a critical foundation for achieving trusted access. We must have visibility into every device being used for work. That's corporate and BYOD.
Now, the fundamental point here is that Jamf Pro has been around and been doing that for a long time. Enrolling devices into Jamf Pro and having policies based on smart groups has been around for quite some time. But I suppose what we want to do is really kind of understand how BYOD devices and how that account-driven enrollment can be utilized to initiate the privacy and protecting of the device.
Right. And they're right there. So for corporate-owned devices, we're talking about automated enrollment ensures that every device enrolls automatically the first time it's turned on, and IT has full control over the endpoints and the entire life cycle of that device. So if that device comes to end of life or is lost, at least IT can manage that device. There's ways within Jamf that can, if it's turned on, please return this device here, or have it instantly wiped. There's always that question around BYOD, this is my device, I don't want IT managing my device. But if I'm going to be accessing corporate information or using corporate applications, there must be a way of managing those devices. And Jamf has that in place. So for BYOD devices, we look at account-driven user enrollment. So this allows employees to initiate the privacy protection on that BYOD device and through that enrollment process. And with user enrollment, IT maintains control over all the company data on those devices through the corporate applications, but doesn't touch your personal information in any way, like your messages, your photos, or apps. And that's fundamental, because as an individual, I want to know that my privacy is maintained. And that's occurs within Jamf
as does
BYOD.
the corporate. The corporation wants to know that their information is theirs to be able to remove and give you access to at the end of the day.
In either case, enrollment is built into Apple devices, and this eliminates the risks associated with insecure enrollment URLs and invitations. So again, if we look at it again, trusted access enables organizations to ensure that only authorized users on enrolled devices that are secure and compliant, and that's really key, and we'll come on to that, can access sensitive data. Next in the ring of trusted access is verified identities. Being able to verify the identity of each user is another critical element within trusted access.
Yeah, it sure is. And what we find is that if you're still using some legacy-based authentication, at the end of the day, you need to start looking at more modern-based deployment and identity, such as Okta, Azure, and that will enable you to be able to have more control over the device and understand how you can protect the device and know that the user is exactly who they are, utilizing the newer technologies.
Next on the trusted access ring is protected endpoints. We also want to ensure that every endpoint being used for work is protected. That's both corporate and BYOD. So out there's many solutions, and there's many products to help to protect the endpoint on Apple devices, but with Jamf we take a very unique point of view. So one, we focus on Apple. We're Apple first, and we make sure that our solutions help organizations manage those endpoints, those Apple devices. Jamf constantly monitors those endpoints for threats to automatically block and quarantine that malware, and it helps to keep your endpoints protected and your data safe. But it doesn't just stop there. Within Jamf Protect and other capabilities that we have, we enable organizations to audit those devices, ensuring that they are protected and aligned with your security benchmarks like the CIS benchmarks. This helps you to ensure that every trusted user on an enrolled device isn't out of compliance with your required security settings. And this is really important when you start bringing the whole trusted access ring together.
And it's really important because from a cybersecurity perspective, Essential 8 has become quite a big thing, which it should. But Jamf in particular has the ability to be able to deploy CIS-based benchmarks to the devices in a very fast way, which is amazing. But it also enables you to be able to ensure that the device is compliant and gives you that feedback for you to be able to really understand where your devices are and then flow it on to other services that you may be implementing, such as conditional access policies. So utilizing Jamf with Jamf Protect, as well as the suite of applications that you've got, you can actually have this telemetry coming back to ensure that the control of the devices is maintained, and you can utilize that information to protect.
Jamf enables organizations to not only just manage that state of that device, but also, let's say a new piece of malware comes out. And if that device connects to the network and it's out of compliance because it's been compromised and you don't know about it, you're putting your organization at risk. We also provide simple security awareness notifications through the Jamf Trust app to help your users learn how to work smarter and safer. I use it on my own BYOD device, and that allows me to be able to work as a user using corporate applications, but also it actually helps protect me when I'm not on the corporate network. So if I get a smishing attack, I might get that Optus or Telstra or Vodafone message, click here or whatever. Jamf Trust is there to help protect me as an end user, and in so doing protects the organization as well.
What we've found from a corporate perspective is that Jamf Trust is really being adopted by clients that really want to ensure that they can hold on to their information. So company apps such as Slack, for instance, you can't grab what you wanted out of Slack, copy and paste, and then move it across into your Notes app, for instance, that's under your personal iCloud account. The great thing about Trusted Access is that it enables corporations to be able to protect the device, their apps, their corporate apps, and the information in those corporate apps by not allowing, say, copy and paste. So if you have Slack, for instance, you can grab text out of Slack and then put it into your OneNote. But within Trusted Access, it doesn't allow you. It just gives you a little notification. No, that's not available for you, which is really great for, say like, financial institutions and governments to really make sure that they can protect the information that's within their corporate apps that's on the device.
And if we look at it even one step further, as you know, Apple is bringing out these kind of micro updates now, these new small security patches. And again, Jamf Trust helps in that space because organizations can say, your device needs to meet these minimum requirements on operating system before you have access to our corporate data. And as a BYOD user myself, if I can't gain access and Jamf Trust goes into like an amber state, and I click on the little button there, it says, oh, please update your OS on your phone. Update my phone, Jamf Trust clicks in again, and then once I go through the process, I can access the corporate data from there.
Yeah.
As I mentioned earlier, users are working from anywhere and from any kind of device. So Jamf offers zero trust access to work resources with continuous device security monitoring. This monitoring will adjust access in real time if a risk on the device is identified. It works with any ownership model, BYOD or corporate, to provide the seamless experience that's always on and never in the way. This is establishing secure connections regardless of where the users are working. Trusted access enables organizations to ensure that only authorized users on enrolled devices that are secure and compliant can access sensitive data. So this brings us down to the final ring in the Jamf Trust, automation and remediation.
Yeah.
So in an ideal world, nothing would go wrong, but we're not in an ideal world. And when reality hits, it's important to have a robust set of automation and remediation options in place so that when it's time to respond to a security incident, you can. Perhaps you need to suspend access for a user, update an operating system, or update a vulnerable app. Maybe it's important to notify the end user as well. The tasks will vary depending on the nature of the issue. But the important thing to understand is that Jamf offers a robust device management foundational platform that allows organizations to resolve any number of different issues with a powerful set of automation tools.
And this is where we found a lot of engagement with our clients, is that from an automation and remediation perspective, we're pretty well positioned with the ability from our engineering perspective to be able to come in there and build out that automation and also integrate it with your existing technologies that you may have in there. So say you do have Azure and you're running conditional access policies for the other vendors that are in the areas. We can help you to be able to utilize Jamf's suite of applications and products to be able to give you that flow through effect, make sure that your single pane of glass that potentially you're already utilizing, it can be helped and enhanced by Jamf and what it's able to do, especially when it comes to introducing all of the telemetry that you can get out of Jamf into your existing SIEM, for instance, or enabling the automation for devices to be locked out of the environment if they do become compromised or they're not quite hitting those conditional access policies requirements that you've already laid out. You may need to jump in there and do some modifications of those conditional access policies because we'll need to be able to feed in certain telemetry and data from Jamf, from Jamf Protect, from Jamf Connect, all of those types of applications for you to be able to ensure that your risk mitigations are actually put in place and your risk profile is decreased. Because at the end of the day, we want to try and prevent an incident from happening, but if an incident does happen, you have the automations in place to be able to nip it in the bud pretty quickly in order to secure the environment, whilst giving the user a bit of an amber thing on their mobile device if they've done something that maybe they shouldn't have done.
And it doesn't stop there. We work with partners such as Compnow, but Jamf is not just Jamf. We have a thing called Jamf Nation, and we have many of our partners out there have integrations and solutions, part of this automation remediation. So the data from Jamf Pro, Jamf Protect can be simulated and pushed out into these other environments and additional tools that basically enhance and are built on top of Jamf platform. Yep. So Jamf is a great solution and a platform, and it's not just Jamf. We have Jamf Nation and all our partners out there that help build on that.
Yeah, 100%. Great resource, that Jamf Nation.
So that's a quick overview of trusted access. It's about device management, identity and access, and endpoint security. We're not expecting our customers to go out there and implement every component of Jamf Trusted Access. We find that we can help customers, and they start in, it's kind of a, how can I say, it's like a roadmap. Yep. You start in one place, you pick up another. It could be, identity and access control, Jamf Connect. How does that implement and go with Microsoft Azure or Intune? Or we might have device management, and that's the overall, Apple platform and managing those devices through to endpoint security. And endpoint security covers everything from iPhones, MacBooks, and even Apple TV. I'm sure a few of you out there will have an Apple TV around where you're using it in your monitor, in your conference room, or you might be using it at front desk. Again, Jamf as a platform enables you to help manage and secure all those devices in your environment.
That was awesome, Mark. Thanks for giving the rundown.
Oh, thank you.
I think we've got a couple of questions, and we did have some follow-on questions from last time. One of the questions that we had from our last one with Aaron and Lloyd was, can I integrate my Jamf environment into my Azure environment? And I might throw that one to you.
Yes, you can. So Jamf has been a long time partner of Microsoft, and yeah, we work very closely with Microsoft and with Microsoft partners like Compnow as well here in Australia. And the great thing about Jamf is that we can do the heavy lifting as far as conditional access for Microsoft into Intune or Azure.
Yep.
So if a device or an individual is trying to connect to your organization, is this the person who they say they are? And you go through that. So obviously, conditional access, there'll be a number of points that I need to meet as a user and a device to have access to that environment. And Jamf does all the heavy lifting. And the great thing about that is we can then provide a yes or no up into Microsoft Intune and say, yes, this device is compliant, or no, it's not.
Yeah. Which is one of the things that we've been helping our customers with recently and for a while. The conditional access has been a thing for quite a while now. So what we wanted to do is ensure that any of the Macs that are in the environment can basically be implemented into that conditional access policy framework that they've already got for their other vendors that they're running. And Jamf really helps us with being able to do that at the end of the day. So another question, so from a security perspective and a single pane of glass, like I said before, that's what clients are really looking for, and how can Jamf help here?
Well, it's, the single pane of glass. That comes up every time. So it's about being able to provide the state of that device into an environment that either SOC teams or InfoSec teams or risk management teams can say, hey, this device meets our requirements, our standards, or what has been happening on that device. How do I get insights into what has been happening on that Apple device? Well, the great thing about that is Apple really provides access to the data through unified logging. So everything that happens on that MacBook is logged in the unified log. That information can be then uplifted into a SIEM like Splunk or Microsoft Sentinel or into an S3 bucket. And again, Jamf Protect has some really great capabilities because, as one of my colleagues likes to explain this, and I say with a smile, you don't want 3 Ferraris worth of data uploaded every day, into your SIEM, because that's going to be expensive for the organization. 100%. But with Jamf Protect and the capabilities that we have around in that, they can then choose the data and what needs to be delivered up into the SIEM, so you can kind of take it from 3 Ferraris worth of data and put it down to a mini's worth, so to say. So Jamf Protect is not only providing protection to the endpoint, but we're also providing, through Jamf telemetry stream, the capability to understand what is the security state of that endpoint device.
Yep. And a lot of the stuff that we've been doing is ensuring that telemetry that's actually being sucked up into corporation SIEMs is actually able to be utilized, because you can have a lot of information, but if you don't know what that information is or how to utilize it, or put the automations in the background to be able to help you, then that's kind of where Compnow can come in, and we can jump in there and help you implement those types of automations and I suppose digest all that information. So how does Jamf enable the organization manage both proactive and potentially reactive compromised devices?
Interesting question. So look, let's just kind of make it kind of simple, because we can go down all sorts of
rabbit holes
and terminology here. So let's say I'm working on my MacBook and unfortunately I do click on something, or I do receive something and that's trying to kind of download a piece of malware. Look, the way that we work with endpoint security is when an action occurs that doesn't meet the norm, then Jamf Protect will kick in straight away. And what it does is it'll depending again how Jamf Protect is set up, normally it will sandbox that piece of malware on the device. It will then obviously notify, there'll be automation as mentioned before, notify the SOC team, InfoSec or whoever it might be, that piece of malware is contained through using smart groups or in Jamf Pro. It can be removed from the network or access to that kind of corporate information, and then enables notify the end user on that device, or that they might even just get a phone call, say, hey, we've noticed that this piece of malware is trying to do something on your device. We need to have access to that information. And it's not about kind of coming down with a big stick on the end user, because at the end of the day, they may not even realize that they've kind of actioned a piece of malware. But it's about how do we contain that threat, manage that threat, and then basically review that threat through the SOC teams and everybody else.
Yeah, awesome. Can we go through some more scenarios, or maybe the main scenario that I already brought up? How does this help companies, keep their information secure?
Jamf Trust. Jamf Trust is an application that it can be downloaded from the App Store. It's on the iPhone. I use it on my BYOD device. So, the question is, how does Jamf Trust help keep information secure? Well, one, as a user, it notifies me whether I need to update my device. It tells me whether, hey, I've clicked on a link that potentially can be a phishing attack, and actually, as a user, stop me from going to that site because it's got that capability. And also, again, as I mentioned before, enables an organization to set a minimum as far as the OS. So if Apple brings out an update, may have 24 hours to implement that, or if I try to access a corporate application and my device is 3 versions of OS behind, I can't do that. Jamf Trust helps to manage and minimize that risk around that.
Excellent.
And as you mentioned earlier, be able to copy and paste from a corporate application. It could be like from my email, and then I think, I'll copy that and I'll put it into my personal notes. Jamf Trust has a way for BYOD of preventing that copy and paste application.
Yeah, and I know that one in particular has been a big thing that a lot of corporate clients have been looking for, and it enables them to be a lot more cautious when it comes to where their devices are going, as well as where their data's going. All right, well, thanks for joining us, Mark. This concludes our session. Thank you for joining us. It's been fun. And Compnow provides IT custom built for your needs. If you need to know, please get in touch with your account manager or email us at info@compnow.com.au. Thanks very much.